The other day, I asked you, the community, to recommend every factory game under the sun for me to play. And after reading the comments, I found dozens of new games to try. And having now played every factory game, or at least most of them, I've learned 5 reasons why you may be playing them wrong. And no, I'm not saying we should all build like Josh, but if you're ready to up your game, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now, mistake number 1 is misunderstanding the type of automation game that you're playing. At first glance, all factory games seem similar, but their playstyles vary significantly when it comes to the resource nodes. Some games like Factorio, Captain of Industry and Dyson Sphere Program have finite resources, meaning these resources will eventually run out. This is actually great because it pushes you to explore and find new nodes. Games like Satisfactory or Shapes, on the other hand, have infinite producing resource nodes. As such, they never run out, which allows you to build permanent factory lines around these nodes. Interestingly though, we've actually seen a recent shift with some games allowing you to choose whether resources are infinite or not, like Tectonica and its new advanced game settings, or Foundry, which allows you to use a late game technology, fracking, to turn finite veins into infinite ones, allowing you to customize your playstyle and pick your own strategy. For instance, infinite resource nodes like in Satisfactory allow you to set up a factory around the node, and then allow you to optimize the flow of materials based on miner level, node purity, and overclocking said node, whereas Shapes allows you to add more extractors depending on the size of the nodes, allowing you to build a factory nearby according to the resource yield. However, this is where many Satisfactory players like myself fall into a trap. If we apply the same strategy to games like Factorio or Foundry, where resources are finite, you may have to tear down the factory or find a way to transport resources to said factory once it depletes, wasting precious time. Instead, what tends to work better in these scenarios is to establish dedicated zones for smelting and refining away from the nodes, and just set up a robuster logistic network system that brings the finite resources to your factory. This saves you the headache of rebuilding constantly, and secondly, it makes your factory more adaptable. Moving on, our second mistake is not planning ahead. Sure, when a new game drops, it's not possible to plan everything, which is why our factories often end up looking like a web of conveyors. But once you start over, as we all do, it's important to plan, because without it, you're setting yourself up for chaos. Planning ahead lets you anticipate what you'll need prior to needing it. This means you won't find yourself scrambling for resources at the last minute, or building a factory that's far too big for your needs, like I did here. But how do you plan effectively? So you can use a notepad and pen, or if you're a little bit more tech savvy, unlike myself, you can use an Excel sheet. Depending on the game though, you may find some incredible calculators and tools online, like Satisfactory Tools, which can help you plan exactly how many buildings you need for the perfect factory, or even Salt to draw up schematics for you to then build in game. But it doesn't stop there. Planning continues when you're in game as well, working out the logistics and building your factory around nature. And if you do want more help when it comes to planning, I highly recommend checking out one of my step-by-step guides on planning. I'll put a link in the cards below to one of them for you. Now, trust me when I say from experience, a little time here spent planning can actually save you a lot of frustration later. So don't just wing it, plan it. Now, moving on to mistake 3, it's not actually considering your PC's performance. We all love to see massive sprawling factories, right? Well, there's something truly awesome about building a complex network of machines and conveyors and then seeing your factory come to life. But as your factory grows, so does the strain on your computer. And this can lead to significant performance drops, especially with late game factories. Now, there are a few strategies to handle this. First up, you can try to keep your factories smaller and more compact, and sometimes smaller, more efficient setups can perform just as well as those massive sprawling ones, especially while you're waiting for game optimizations that might help improve performance. Or even building your factories away from one another as well can greatly help with that. Option 2 is upgrading your PC. Yes, it can get pricey, but if you're serious about your factory games and you want to go big, ensuring your hardware can handle the load is crucial. More RAM and faster processors can make a huge difference in the late game, but if you're struggling in the early game, perhaps even updating your graphics card can go a long way. And if you're not ready to invest in new hardware, then there are other solutions using cloud gaming services like GeForce Now, or you could even look at dedicated servers. And speaking of dedicated servers, I am partnered with Low.ms, which offers 20% off your first month if you're using a dedicated server, and doing so can take a lot of the computational load off of your PC, allowing you to continue expanding your factory without worrying about your game turning into a slideshow. Now, these services let you push your builds to the limits without the same hardware constraints. So whether you do end up deciding to go for a smarter build approach, or you upgrade your gear, or even leverage cloud solutions, there are ways to keep your factories running smoothly and keep that gameplay experience as enjoyable as ever. Probably the worst error though when it comes to factory games is turning the game into a chore. It's all too easy to get wrapped up in our mega projects. We start off with excitement, planning these huge factories and laying out endless conveyor belts and pipes. But halfway through, it can start to feel more like a job than a game. I know, I've been there, pushing myself to get the factory built rather than enjoying the whole process. This is where the danger of burnout creeps in. We love the idea of our factories growing, becoming more complex and efficient, but here's a tip that I've found invaluable. Balance is key. If you find yourself getting bored or overwhelmed by a massive project, it's okay to step back. Take a break from the gigantic build. Why not start a smaller or more creative project? Maybe experiment with some new strategies or play around with a different game mechanic or mod the game. Switching up your activities can reignite your passion for the game and help you return to your larger projects with fresh eyes and renewed energy. And remember, it's supposed to be fun. The moment that it feels like a grind, it's a signal to mix things up. Keep the game dynamic and engaging by balancing big builds with smaller, more enjoyable tasks. Ultimately, ensuring that you're having fun is what will keep you coming back to your factory without feeling like it's just another day in the office. So don't forget to play the game at your own pace and in ways that bring you joy. And if you are struggling with this, just check out my video on avoiding burnout in Satisfactory. Finally, the fifth error is not implementing a failsafe within your factory. It sounds silly, but how many times have you turned on a factory and had the wrong resources being sent in the wrong direction, or had the power cut out with no backup? It may sound counterproductive putting in a bit more work to add failsafes to your builds, but it's a huge time saver, whether that's running the factory whilst you're building to ensure each section runs, or using smart splitters to ensure only the right resources are going to the right location, or keeping your power production buildables on a separate power circuit to the rest of the factory. Doing so, you'll never have to struggle to turn power on again. Adding these little fail-safes will save you a lot of time if something does go wrong. And I should know because it happens in my factories all the time and I never learn from this. Now, if you are interested in using a dedicated server for Satisfactory, Factorio, Foundry, or many other factory games, then do make sure to use the link below and the code Totalxclipse at checkout to get 20% off your first month. Now, I hope you found this video interesting and maybe even a little bit enlightening. If you're wondering what to dive into next though, why not check out my video on why factory games are so addictively fun. It's a great watch, especially if you're looking to deepen your appreciation for these complex games. As always, special thanks does go to all of our amazing supporters on Patreon who allow me to create content like this for you. Notably, our Solo Clips Patreon Firefless, as well as our Lunas, the Calamity, Ben and Star, as well as our Blood Moon of the day, which today is Papa Snoozy. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.